The whole world is moving at a much faster pace in terms of change.
A former director of the National Investment Strategy at the Ministry of Economy and a former vice president corporate planning for Tanfeed, he comes with extensive experience in managing multi-billion-dollar petroleum assets, holds an executive MBA from London Business School and a master's degree in strategic project management, and is currently the acting VP Group Strategy, Planning and Risk at Ookio. In today's podcast, we discover Ookio's operating model and the role of Oman's youth in achieving these aspirations. Yasser Al Tooqi is a strategist by nature, an optimist, an aspiring karate student, a passionate father, and an overall asset to the company. This is Faten Al-Mawali on this podcast. Hi, Yasser. Thank you so much for being on this with us today.
Thanks for having me, Faten, and I'm honored to be part of your podcast show.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you here. So we'll start off with asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and who exactly is Yasser.
Okay. As much as that question sounds to be simple, it's always hard to talk about. Maybe I'll start with the order of priorities.
Okay.
I do consider myself as a family man. I enjoy doing a lot of things with my kids. Mm-hmm. And to mention, recently I enrolled my kids to karate classes.
That's so cool.
Okay, and I saw how much they enjoyed it. I said, I need a little bit of that myself. Mm-hmm. So I decided to actually enroll in the grown-up version of the of the classes. Mm-hmm. And I do see that as an opportunity, as a chance to relive my childhood in a way.
Nice.
Yeah, getting to do all these karate moves with them. They actually practice with me or practice on me. So they look at me as a punching bag and they do their kicks and punches.
Lovely.
And as I mentioned, I look at it as a chance to relive the childhood because I never did karate when I was a kid. So I look at it as a chance to do that without people saying,
what is he doing?
What is he doing? Yeah. And we did swimming together as well a few years ago. So I enjoy spending time with them as much as possible. More about me, maybe if we touch upon the work side, I consider myself as someone who's approachable, mm-hmm. adaptive. I can deal well with uncertainty, with ambiguity, and I try to make things make more sense, mm-hmm. even in an environment that does not necessarily promote that consistency. And also, I do enjoy swimming, as I mentioned. I also love reading. I consider it as one of the hobbies that stayed with me since I was a child. Mm-hmm. So you can say I'm a bookworm without being offended in a way. And I read everything, starting from philosophy. I read science fiction, I read mystery. But more in the last few years, I'm mainly on the personal development and maybe scientific books. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do consider myself as someone who likes to learn.
Right.
Yeah, I consider myself as a curious person. Not curious in a bad way, like wanting to know what the neighbors are having for dinner.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But curious in a sense, I want to know how things work.
Seeking knowledge.
Yeah. And I do remember there was a website called How Things Work many years ago. And every now and then they'll actually publish something new, like how space shuttles work, how engines work. Mm-hmm. So getting to know how things work. And nowadays it's getting to know how people work. Yeah. I like to form new relationships, whether it's at work or outside of work. It's not just touching on the surface, but actually getting to really know the people.
Right.
And what makes them tick.
Mm-hmm. Well, you certainly are very approachable and adaptive. It was very easy for me to approach you and talk to you about this podcast and feel your flexibility. And obviously, I hear the knowledge when I speak to you. So that is very true, what you said about yourself. So moving on, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey in Ookio and how you got to your current position? Okay,
I think it was... Again, I can't call it as something that it's really planned and laid out. I started the journey when I first joined Oman Oil Exploration and Production back in 2011 as the operation interface manager, basically looking after all the operations activities when we were building or constructing the Abu Tubul gas plant. And that was my entry point into the group. It was not Ookyu back then.
Yeah.
Okay. And to me, it was one of the main reasons that made me make the move, because I was working in Shell marketing before that, was the fact that this is the national oil company. So I spent 3 years during the project phase in Abu Tubul project. And once we commissioned the plant, I moved to another role, which is asset manager for Khazan.
Okay.
And that was the joint venture between Oman Oil Exploration and Production back then and BP to build one of the biggest gas plants in the region. And it was considered to be one of the biggest projects in gas at that time. And that went on for 3 years for the life of the construction and development of that project. And once we commissioned it, I decided this was quite a big project. And most of the action, in my opinion, actually happens during the construction phase where you face with a lot of challenges in comparison to the operation phase where everything is steady, so to speak. So I was approached to this role in the government as a secondee. This was back in 2017. Towards the end of 2017, there was a role of Vice President for Corporate Planning.
Right.
For the Tanfeedh program, which back then it was part of the Diwan Royal Court.
Right.
Okay. And the role reported directly to the minister in charge of the program.
Okay.
And the program was mainly to accelerate the economic diversification of Oman. So you can see the magnitude just from describing the mandate of that unit. So I moved from just looking at oil and gas, particular projects and fields, to now having this bigger picture,
right.
Oman at a national level.
Right.
Okay. And it was quite overwhelming in the beginning. It's new. I've never worked for the public sector. And then probably that's where the adaptability comes in and the dealing with ambiguity comes in. And I got to meet great people who managed to help me understand the task at hand. And alhamdulillah, we managed to achieve quite a lot in the 3 years I spent as VP Corporate Planning in that role. And when things became steady and everything was running smoothly, I have already onboarded someone to take over.
Right.
By then. And I moved to another role with the Ministry of Economy, and that is to look after the national investment strategy for Oman at the national level. And that was, again, I consider it as a monumental task. And we managed to at least come up with a framework on how the strategy should look like. And that lasted for a year. So we did all the groundwork in preparation to actually embark on the task of developing the strategy.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it was time for me to come back.
Okay.
To Ookyu. So I spent 4 years in secondment, and I thought it was a long time to be away. And a lot have happened. I missed all the integration.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to hear about it from afar whenever I sit with my old colleagues, but I never got the first-hand experience. So, as they say, out of sight, out of heart, right? So 4 years, I considered if I continue to be away, people will forget about me.
Okay.
So I decided to come back and look for suitable roles. And during that period, I actually completed an executive MBA program with London Business School,
right.
which was, I consider it a transformational experience for me at a personal level, at a professional level as well. I learned quite a lot from that program. It was quite intense as well. And then a program of that magnitude equips you with a lot of tools that you can actually use to come and do great things. Yeah, I remember our dean telling us that the main purpose of the university, London Business School, is actually for the students to go out and have an impact in the world. Okay, they even called it during that period Impact Square. So it's not just you go and you do impactful work. No, it has to be multiple times of magnitude. So I felt like I do have a ton of energy, and there's a lot that I would like to do with all of this knowledge and experience. So I came back, and I was glad that I sat with many people within the organization, and I started to see where I can add value. It's not just about a position, it's about where you can actually have an impactful value to the organization and to yourself as well.
Right.
And because I did the work with regards to the national investment strategy, I got more immersed in strategy work. And even before that in Tanfeed and in my previous roles as well, I will always have that strategy element in everything that I do. I always think big picture.
No, there's definitely so much that's happened to you in the past 4 years. It's incredible to hear that. And you think that 4 years is actually a short time, but in reality, you can do so much, and it depends how you calculate your time. So I have so many questions, but because of time, I can't ask everything. But obviously, the word on the ground is that, we have a new operating model coming out, and there have been a few announcements about who the new leaders will be. But that creates a little bit of making the people feel a bit agitated and slightly uncomfortable, not knowing what the future has to hold. What can you say to help comfort?
Okay. You remember I told you earlier that I like to know how things work.
Yes.
Okay. So usually the best place to start is you start from the top, or you start to look at the bigger picture. The whole world is moving at a much faster pace in terms of change, which calls upon not just only countries, but organizations and companies to be more resilient, because you don't know what is the next big thing will be. Nobody can predict the future. Yeah, but the only thing that you can do, which is within your circle of control, is for you to be prepared, for you to be resilient. Yeah. So when the time comes to call upon those attributes of resilience, you are prepared. Okay. I like to quote one of my ex-bosses, and he got that quote from boxing. Yeah. And it says, train hard, fight easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Muhammad Ali quote?
It could be. Yeah.
Yes.
He must have got it. So if you train hard, that means the next time you're
in the ring,
you're better prepared.
Right.
Yeah. And
muscle memory.
It looks like you know a bit about boxing. Yeah.
I do box.
Okay. All right. That's something new. I didn't know about you, but definitely. So it's again linked to resilience. Yeah. Because you can't predict the moves, but at least you can control, be prepared to take the hits. Yeah. And how you recover from those hits.
Right. Okay. I'm really enjoying this analogy right now.
Yeah.
I can actually picture it. Yes.
So now if we go back to the question,
yes.
The new operating model, I do see it as that preparedness.
Right.
The new operating model addresses that once it's fully implemented, we will be better prepared to face the future challenges. We'll be resilient, we'll be agile, we'll be able to identify risks faster, even create scenarios for the future that will keep us on the lookout for any changes. So if it happens, we don't become reactive, we are more proactive towards change. So hence the new operating model, and for us to actually move to becoming a high-performing organization. So I hope that answers.
That's a very good answer. Yeah. Yes, thank you. So you mentioned risk, and I'm going to touch on this just a little bit now, because since you hold a position of group strategy and risk for Ookyo, what risks do you see, and how can we carefully avoid falling into them?
There are so many risks that face an organization the size of Ookyo.
Yeah, let's look at the top, the high ones, if any, stick out.
Yeah, the high ones, as I mentioned to you, the linkages between what we do with the 10th 5-year plan, with our shareholders, understanding their expectations, and ensuring that all of that is actually cascaded down the line And as I mentioned to you, communication is very important. So communicating the strategy,
yes,
ensuring that everybody understand their role in the bigger picture. Doing that effectively will eliminate this risk. And I call it a risk towards strategy implementation. Communication is one of them. And translating the strategy into smaller chunks that everybody can understand and everybody can actually say, okay, now I know my part in this, and I need whatever I'm doing today actually fits in this big picture.
In your opinion, what role do employees have to play? I mean, I see a big role for them, but in your opinion, what do you think they need to do?
Is ask questions. I mean, for example, if it was me, again, I mentioned that I'm a curious person.
Yes.
Yeah. I would want to know, what is this strategy all about? I will ask my direct manager. I will ask my colleagues. I'll try and see whatever content that is there in our portal that talks about strategy and its implementation. Also, again, as I mentioned to you, we are trying to communicate, and we do have bulletins that go out, and we try to send the message with regards to what's coming. So there is a communication plan, there is an engagement plan. We already started with workshops. We are going to have some form of roadshows where we will talk to people, address their concerns with regards to strategy and what is their role. So this should provide the necessary information for people to understand how they link.
Right.
Yeah. We're also in the process of developing and implementing a performance management system that will ensure we cascade the strategy into KPIs at the SBU level. SBU stands for Strategic Business Units. And then from there, it will be cascaded as KPIs to assets. So everything is linked to the strategy. And then from the assets to the functions within the assets, and then from the functions all the way to the individuals. So every employee in Ookyo will have elements of the strategy translated to their KPIs.
I think that is beautifully said. Thank you for answering that question like that. Okay, so now I'm going to take it a little bit out of Ookyo and more like look at Oman as a whole. If you look at the youth in Oman, the young people, the upcoming new buds, what opportunities does the future hold for the Omani youth, and what do they need to know, or what would you say to them?
Okay, that's an interesting question. First of all, maybe I can summarize it in 2 words. The future is theirs. And I'm a strong believer that our future lies in the hands of our youth. Okay? I have seen this evidently during my secondment in Tanfeed. Majority of my team was actually fresh graduates, and I have seen the potential, the capabilities. If I compare myself when I was in their age, in terms of intellect, in terms of passion, in terms of energy, in terms of understanding, in terms of being proactive towards tasks and challenges, I'm no match.
Wow.
If I can put it that way.
Okay.
So there is great potential.
So what's different between them and, but you back then?
Yeah, if we just pick one thing, and I think that's another great question, is the access to information.
The internet.
Yeah. And I remember when I was just a kid, eager to read. Yeah. There weren't that many, number one, bookshops.
Right.
Yeah. Not
Still
many
aren't.
books. Yeah. And if you find a book, probably it's from a friend.
Right.
And then you have to return it back. And then there was this exchange of books that used to go on between me and some of my close friends, including comics and not just the serious books, but also including comics.
Fun
And
books.
yeah. So that's one aspect. The access to knowledge, access to information, it's profound. I mean, you can't even begin to compare 90s and 2022, right? With regards to access to information. So that makes it very easy for them to grasp new concepts, new frameworks, and the kind of books that they read. I consider it books that I read maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, but you have someone who's a fresh graduate being able to grasp philosophy books.
Right.
you
Concepts
get
that
into
are so deep.
an intellectual conversation. So,
Right.
so to me, I'm really impressed. And I see great potential if it is harnessed and used properly. Yeah.
Wow. No truer words have ever been said.
Okay.
Okay, so that's pretty much comes to the end of my questions. But I'm going to pass the mic back on to you and ask you if there's anything else you'd like to add.
From my side, I think we've covered quite a lot in the conversation, and what I would like to say maybe to the audience is the future is bright, and maybe one thing I did not mention in the beginning, I'm a very optimistic person. Yeah, I always look at the glass half full and always try to get the bright side of things, no matter how dark the situation is. Yeah. So there is a lot to be optimistic about. All right. Even during times of uncertainty, even during times of change. In fact, as you might know, during ups and downs, especially during the downside, it's where the greatest opportunities lies. Yeah, not during the
highs, the good times.
Yes.
Yes. True. You learn your mettle.
Absolutely. Yeah. So to me, I look at it that way, and maybe I've been around long enough to have witnessed a few of those. Is that during difficult times, that's where great things happen.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
That was wonderful. And I really appreciate having you on the show. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Fatin. And I hope that this conversation will appeal to our audience or your audience.
Our audience,
yeah,
inshallah.
And I hope I passed on the message in the way that you have intended it to be.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.